Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Yesterday, I finally got to see the documentary film ARIEL Phenomenon, which basically tells the story of what happened at the ARIEL school in Ruwa, Zimbabwe in September of 1994, where actually over 60 kids, schoolchildren, saw a flying saucer and alien beings. And I thought the movie was fantastic. There was no narration or anything like that. Basically, the story just tells itself via footage from when it happened, when the event happened, leading up to the event, just right after the event, where people like Harvard psychiatrist and Professor John Mack showed up there and interviewed a lot of these kids. It was a very fascinating piece of work, I gotta say. It was directed by a person named Randall Nickerson, who this guy had apparently had encounters with extraterrestrials himself at one point, but he never talks about it, from what I understand. It's something that he doesn't really talk about, but he really did a great job with this movie. Now, the reason it took me so long to get around to seeing this, I really, when this movie came out, I was planning just to buy it right out of the gate. I wanted to buy this movie because I figured it would be something I would want to watch over and over again. But it wasn't available for purchase, so it was only available to stream at a pretty high price. It was like $19.99 to stream it, and actually you could only stream it at the website that Nickerson had set up, ARIEL Phenomenon. And so I just figured I'd wait. I actually had sent him a message. I believe it was on Twitter or Facebook. I think it was Twitter. When I asked him early on if there was going to be something available, something to purchase, I'd like to buy it because I knew it was going to be something I would want to watch over and over again. Of course, a lot of us are completely aware about the ARIEL phenomenon, and something I talk about all the time on here. In fact, to me, it's the absolute pinnacle. I mean, it's the absolute best proof we have. I mean, of an extraterrestrial presence here on Earth. I mean, to me, that just ends it right there. And there's a lot of things to talk about with this documentary. But first off, I just want to say, to me, there's a lot of strange things going on here. For one thing, I don't understand the reasoning to hold off releasing this finally to buy. Like, I actually ended up buying it from the ARIEL Phenomenon website yesterday. It was like $24.99, and so basically now I have it, but I have to go to that website and watch it. And if I want to watch it on my TV, I got to hook up HDMI cord and all. I got to go through a lot of trouble. I would have much rathered to basically purchase a streaming version on Vudu or Amazon Prime or something like that. I have no problem buying it. I just, I don't like to have to do this now. Now I bought it and I finally can get to watch it, but I have to use my computer to either watch it on my laptop or connect my laptop directly with an HDMI cord or by casting it, to my TV. But anyway, that's just a minor complaint that I have. But it finally became available to purchase just recently. Actually, it did show up on Amazon about a month or so ago, and I saw it was available. But again, it was only for rental for like $19.99. I just thought that was a little bit too steep. I'm not a rich guy. But I knew that this movie was going to be important. I could just tell by the trailer for it leading into it, and that this was going to be something special. And I guess I don't understand why, what's going on here, why this is, and why it's not being picked up a lot by other. I mean, there's not even a Wikipedia page for this movie yet. I mean, it's hard to believe. I mean, it came out in May. It's probably one of the best UFO documentaries out there to ever made on this whole topic, and yet there's not even a Wikipedia page. If you go to Rotten Tomatoes, there's only 5. It has 100% perfect Rotten Tomatoes score, right? But there's only 5 reviews. And they're all very positive reviews, and rightly so. This is a 4-star documentary. I mean, this is top notch. 4 out of 4 stars. And at the same time, though, and I've watched this whole thing now. From what I've read that I guess Nickerson did try to make some kind of deals with some other streaming platforms. I don't know. I'm not sure if it was Netflix or Amazon or whoever, and they wanted him to make changes to his film. and I guess he didn't want to do that. I mean, this film was actually obviously it took a long time to make this, years and years to make this movie, and he didn't want to make those changes. I don't blame him. I think the way it's presented is it's absolutely perfect. But to me, this movie itself, this movie constitutes proof. I mean, this should be it. This actually, anybody, if you were to watch this movie, I know it's $24.99 to buy it, and I think it's right now 14 something to rent it on that Ariel Phenomenon website. It's a lot of money. But if you're really interested in it, and you don't want to wait till it's available on some other platforms, maybe as part of your Netflix plan or something like that, if you don't want to wait, then I'd suggest that you check it out. But what's stunning to me is the fact that it's something that's really not talked about. We've talked about. There's been other movies that have been talked about, like James Fox's last couple of movies, The Phenomenon from 2020 that he came out with, was an excellent documentary, and also Moment of Contact about the 1996 Varginha UFO crash and alien encounters. Documentary that was just recently released, and I watched that. That was excellent, and they're very good documentaries. But this one here, to me, I mean, this is proof. It's absolute. It's the end story. It's the end game here. And when you watch this, it's like, I mean, I've known a lot of different things about. I've read a lot of different things about the 1994 Ariel school encounter, and I've watched different documentaries. Of course, it was featured in The Phenomenon. It was at the end of James Fox's 2020 documentary, The Phenomenon. That was discussed there a lot. But this movie really fleshes it out a lot. You really get to see how this affected those kids. Those kids are growing up now, and a lot of them, it's a very hard thing to deal with. People don't believe them. Some of them don't even talk to their family members or friends about it because they're afraid they're going to be made fun of and things like that. It's very interesting. But there's just so many great things about this movie. But the bottom line is, after it's over, I mean, this is it. This is absolute proof. There's all these different witnesses now, and there's a whole bunch of them. You see them when they're kids in this documentary talking about this, when people like John Mack and other investigators were first meeting with them right after this event happened. You see them talking then, and then you see a lot of them talking now as adults, like over the past few years, I guess. Obviously, this was filmed over a course of several years here. But you see them talking now, and it's just, I mean, these were witnesses. If this was to go to court, I mean, this would be a done deal. It would prove this case here, the Ariel Phenomenon, just ends the debate as far as I'm concerned. But yet it's not out there enough. I mean, I don't understand. Again, there's not even a Wikipedia page just for this movie. Now, you could go to Wikipedia, and you'll find there's a page on the Ariel incident itself, right? But there's not even a Wikipedia page on this Ariel Phenomenon film. And again, Rotten Tomatoes only has 5 reviews for it. I mean, this is a bigger thing than that. This is like proof of it. I mean, you would think that someone in the mainstream media would take a look at this and say, you know what, we got to stop the presses here for a minute. This movie ends the debate. This is it. I mean, look at this. This is proof. There's extraterrestrials here, end of story. That's it. Here we go. It's proof positive that there's an extraterrestrial presence on Earth. It's end of debate. Like I've talked about this before, you just can't have a bunch of kids concoct some kind of a scheme to tell a lie like this and just maintain it for almost 30 years now. It's just impossible. That just doesn't happen. And you see the interviews with these kids when it first happened, and they're very sincere. I mean, they're all telling basically the same story of what they experienced and what they saw. There was a lot of different interesting things about this, and including another thing that I thought was really interesting and almost embarrassing was the reaction of the colleagues of someone like John Mack, the Harvard psychiatrist. He passed away in, I believe, 2005, somewhere around there. He was killed tragically when he was hit by a car. But he went out there in 1994 and interviewed all these kids. And plus he was investigating, he had an interest in alien abductions and stuff. And to see, there was a couple of his colleagues that they had on there. And it was archival footage from back then, from the 90s. And, the way they thought of what he was doing, the way they thought he was, the one guy basically saying he thinks he's crazy, there's nothing, we need him to come back to reality, like what he was doing there was no reason for him to investigate this kind of stuff, that basically it's all crazy. Like they had no belief in it whatsoever. And it's embarrassing to see that. It's embarrassing to see supposed intelligent men sitting there talking about how John Mack's crazy, and they're not even looking into it. They just think it's crazy because they've bought into the whole stigmatization, obviously of extraterrestrials, that they just think is all nonsense. So they can't believe any of it, so it's just, and that was an embarrassing part to see that. But it was so interesting. There was a lot of different archival footage, and the way it was all arranged and put together, it switched back and forth from 94, and it would go to more recent times, and you would be meeting some of the kids that they're growing up now. Some of the teachers that were there at the time, you see some of them talking about it. It was very, very fascinating stuff, and I highly recommend it. To me, it's the proof. It's a shame that someone from the mainstream media hasn't sat down and looked at this and said, look, this is it. This is, and put this, actually, the mainstream media, one of the big networks, ABC, Fox, NBC, CBS, they should actually purchase the rights for this and just show it and say, hey, there's a special presentation tonight. Hey, we're going to end it's all over now. It looks at the extraterrestrials are here. This movie actually proves it. This is the proof that we need, because it does prove it. It's absolute proof. There's nothing else it could have been. I mean, basically what happened, all these kids were on a break. There was a staff meeting with the teachers inside the school. It was in the morning in September of 1994. And the kids are out there playing, eating their lunches. And next thing you know, some of them saw these bright lights, and there was a saucer that landed. There was extraterrestrials that exited this craft. There was one that was running back and forth like in slow motion. It was very strange. There was another one that was basically communicating with these children telepathically. I mean, it's fascinating. And there was all these kids that saw it, all these witnesses, and you see them then being interviewed, talking about what they just experienced, and you see them now talking all these years later, still telling the same story and how it affected their lives, how their lives changed because of that day. And I can't say enough about this movie. It's just so awesome. But again, even what's fascinating to me is even the director himself has not played this up as much as I think he should have. But maybe that's maybe that's the right thing to do. I don't know. He's the guy who made it. But I mean, I'm going to read this director's statement from Randall Nickerson, and this is from the ARIEL Phenomenon website, or I'll leave the link for it. I mean, for anyone that's interested in looking at this and maybe buying the movie. I know it's a lot of money, but for someone like me, I needed to have this. But anyway, here's his statement, and he's not trying to force you to believe anything, and I think that could possibly be the right way to do it, But I think anybody that sees this is going to walk away and say, "Yep, it's true. There's really something here." So I don't know. I guess that was his. I guess he looked at it that way. But here's what he said. Here's what he wrote. 14 years ago, when I first saw the archival interviews with the ARIEL school students conducted by Harvard professor Dr. Mack, I was fascinated by the authenticity of the children. I ended up journeying 3 times to Zimbabwe and Southern Africa, and also to the UK, Canada, and around the United States to interview people who were at the ARIEL school and the surrounding region on that day. My team and I have dug up every type of primary document and media we could find, and it has grown into its current form, a feature-length documentary travelogue, journeying back to Africa while following the paths of individuals whose lives were entwined with the event. We made the conscious decision to avoid narration or unrelated interviews. The story belongs to the ARIEL school community. We didn't use special effects because this is a real story made with real footage, no recreations. I don't know what happened on that day in 1994, but I do believe that in this current era, we need to take a real look at this phenomena, whatever it may turn out to be. If you subtract the UFO element, this film is simply about the human experience of dealing with and having to keep secret a traumatic event that invites judgment. The people who are followed in this film face a universal dilemma, the need to be heard and recognized. That's something that's happening on many levels in our society today. People finding the courage to speak out. And I guess that's a really good statement on this film. I guess I think I mean maybe I'm just I want to get the word out there. I want the Band-Aid ripped off. I think I would have been different. I'm probably not the right guy to make a documentary like this, because I think I would have handled this a lot differently. I would have been screaming my head off at the top of my lungs on the highest hill I could find. But maybe he's doing it the right way. But yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. This movie, you have to see it. I mean, I don't know if you could wait. I waited. I mean, I just waited since May. So I waited months and months here till I was finally had the ability to purchase it, because I knew it was going to be something I want to watch more than once. But yeah, it's a fascinating film, and to me, it's the end game. It constitutes proof. This should be used as a vessel to prove to the world that extraterrestrials are here. I mean, again, it's so funny in a way that it's not being talked about a lot. It hasn't been talked about a lot by the mainstream press. I mean, like, again, five reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. And to me, this is probably the most important documentary film about UFOs we've ever had. I mean, it really is. I mean, with all due respect to James Fox, I think he's the best guy out there making documentaries. But overall, I would say this movie here, this documentary in of itself, right, it ends the story. It ends the game. I mean, the game's over. I mean, maybe there's an effort out there to keep it plugged up, because I think anybody who sees this, they're going to realize, oh my God, this is real. How could you deny it after seeing all these people talking about this as kids and then growing up? It's just amazing. It just to me, it constitutes proof. It's as much proof to me. This movie is as much proof to me as if an alien spaceship crashed inside my yard and there was a dead alien laying by it, and I was able to show it to the world. To me, this movie is the same kind of thing to me. So I think you got to check it out.